Hey everyone, welcome back to Temple of Geeks Who Review, a Doctor Who inspired podcast for fans of the long running British science fiction series. I'm your host, Nate, aka DocintheBox.
I'm your other host, Elizabeth, aka Lady of Time Cosplay.
We are massive Doctor Who fans, and we are here to talk about all things Doctor Who. Throughout our series, we will be discussing the latest episodes, classic series, the spin offs, and everything in between.
We'll also hope to bring you some interviews with people who've worked in and around the series, behind the scenes information, and all sorts of other Doctor Who related fun.
So, whether you're a longtime fan or just getting started, we hope you'll join us for the ride.
And today we will be discussing the season 2, or whatever number you want to call this season, finale, The Reality War by Russell T Davies. Um, if you have managed to get to our episode of the podcast and not been spoiled for it, how?
Congratulations.
How? Because they posted everything everywhere as soon as the episode
The
was over.
second it came out. But if you haven't watched it and you still want to watch it, I suggest dropping everything and watching it right now
Yeah.
and come back later because this will be a doozy of an episode for us. We
Yeah.
have quite a bit to say.
For sure. For sure. But yeah, if somehow you've found us but not seen everything else about this episode, I am impressed and I want your algorithm because holy cow, it'd be nice to not get spoiled immediately. But
Just
yeah,
uninstall everything and shut off your phone. That's basically
yeah.
what you got to do.
I mean, that is basically what I did. I mean, because usually I'm able to watch the episode before I go into work on Saturday, but because of them changing what time this episode came out, it came out in the middle of my shift on Saturday, and so I just had to turn the internet off on my phone.
I mean, even
So we-
Russell T Davies posted something himself, like
yeah,
right after the episode.
yeah. I mean, I turned off the internet on my phone, and I made sure I turned off like notifications for everything on my phone, including because I did have this thought because it has almost gotten spoiled for me before. I turned off notifications on the Big Finish app because they almost always will do if they have something they can put on sale that goes along with what happened in that week's episode of Doctor Who, they will do that. And I'm sure they did. So I made sure that I turned off notifications for the Big Finish app because I probably would have gotten spoiled when I turned on my internet briefly to clock out at work because my clock out is on my phone.
Big gasp before we jump into it, the both
Yeah.
of us.
I want to talk about our thoughts on the episode overall, but I think just because of the enormity of what happened at the end of this episode, I do want to say, up until I really liked this face, what were your thoughts on the episode?
I'm gonna have to go. This is one of those things where I took notes, and I know in other episodes I would emphasize like, oh, in this episode I usually have notes, but I took notes. In this episode, I have like a PowerPoint essay going on. We might have to go line by line into different parts of the episode. There were a lot of things, and just so everyone knows up front, so everyone knows straightforward. I love this show, but it's also something, even during the Capaldi era, that was my favorite era. That was my favorite Doctor. Um, there are always things that I nitpick because that's just who I am. And I have a lot, and not in a negative way, but I have a lot of notes on this episode. Um, so
Yeah.
I
I mean,
apologize if it sounds like I'm just saying everything negative because I am trying to put the positive into it also, but there's a lot that just I'm gonna have to itemize this
yeah.
episode.
I mean, I know what you mean. I mean, there's a lot to talk through. I think there, like you said, like we were saying, there's a lot that happens in this episode. There's a lot that didn't get explained super well or wasn't set up as well as it could have been. But I do hope that people understand. And from listening to us, I hope that you guys know that we do love this show. So anything that we say out of love for the show and not in a rage bait, clickbait, hateful way that other people do. Hopefully, we're able to have a good discussion about it because there is a lot to discuss.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna say I hated everything.
No,
I don't want anyone to think that I'm just gonna sit here and, lack of better words, bitch about stuff. But there are things that you just want to point out because we all have we hold these characters dear to us, and sometimes we feel like things aren't given the justice they deserve. um I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I don't know where to go from here, because that's
Uh,
not overall thought. Maybe we should go on your overall thought, and I'll jump
yeah.
into the itemization.
Yeah. I mean, um, overall, I thought up until we get to, oh, I really liked this face. At which point, I yelled at my TV loud enough that my mom texted me to make sure I was okay. Yeah. I thought it was okay. It was a bit weaker than the rest of the episodes this season, because overall this season was absolutely fantastic. So
Yes.
the episodes leading up to the finale were all incredibly well done. That we had some amazing new writers, some great returning writers. Um, I just, where before I was willing to give the 8 episode season a chance, it just not enough was done to set up what we saw in this episode, is my main thought. Um, I was kind of disappointed by how quick Omega was there and gone.
Yes.
Don't know why he was a giant CGI skeleton,
I
because I mean, I know he shows up in a Fifth Doctor episode. I haven't seen that one, but I have seen the Three Doctors, which is the
Three
10th
Doctors, yeah.
anniversary
And
episode.
he had no body.
He had no body. He
He was
was
just
just like,
spite, just
he
will
was
and
like,
hatred, just spite. He lived
yeah.
out of spite.
So I don't understand why he was a giant CGI skeleton. It was a little weird. The texture in his nose, like, I don't think I have that, whatever that is that people have with too many holes, but like that just, I didn't like it.
I
I
thought
don't
it was
know.
kind of
It's a
creepy
weird
and
thing.
cool. It was an interesting texture. Let's
It
focus. Okay,
was.
so this is gonna be a podcast about Omega's nose now.
Yes.
It, but it was. I think they tried to have Ncuti explain it like he's become a legend himself. So he's become everything that everyone thinks he was, the Titan, the original Sim, blah blah blah. But I will admit, when saw those claws come out of the door, I was like, "What?" And then when I saw the big old hand come out, I might have yelled something inappropriate at the screen, because I was expecting him to not have a corporeal, like an actual body.
Yeah.
And even the Ronnie was like, "What?"
Like, excuse you? I mean,
Yeah,
probably
the
because
texture
she
in
was
his
like, oh,
nose was
I mean,
crazy.
yeah, I'm sure that part of that for her at least was like because her whole plan was to, like, dead or alive, use his body as a gene bank for the Time Lords.
Yeah,
And she was like, no, that's not what we're supposed to look like. Yeah, that was just, it was over way too quick. I mean, even quicker than, I mean, at least I know some people didn't like the CGI Sutak last season, but at least like it made sense from the design that we'd seen from him before, where he had that kind of Anubis looking mask and like the Egyptian kind of
the jackal.
the jackal,
Yeah,
the inspiration from Egyptian culture. There's a whole discussion to have on how the original episode handled that, but um, just, I don't know where they got that design for Omega from, because even like it didn't even slightly look like the mask that he had before. I don't know. Um, it also continued to be a very talky episode, much like last week was, where a lot of stuff was said instead of shown. And it can be a tricky show to do that, but with the budget that they have right now, it was weird that it was just so talky. I guess all the money went into the giant CGI skeleton. I don't know. Um,
into Omega's nose cavity.
yeah. I don't know why that just stuck in my head. I was like, I don't like that. I don't like it.
I just
Um,
want to touch it.
there's just, yeah. I'm like, oh, ugh. It looks like it'd be like one of those bad microfiber cloths or something
Yeah, you
texture.
think it's spongy or crusty?
I don't know. I want to stop thinking about it now, to be honest. Um, but I also, there were also parts of the episode that I appreciated, and we'll get into some of the standout moments and performances a bit later on in the episode. one thing that I did really appreciate, and I do think was done well outside of the complicated feelings that I have about how Belinda's story ended, I appreciated that they made the doctor just as much. He was just as protective and just as willing to say, yes, Poppy is my daughter and I want to protect her, as Belinda was. I think there's parts of that that could have been handled better, but I do think that their reaction was pretty equal to wanting to protect Poppy. I have other thoughts on that. We'll get to it later, but it never occurred to the doctor that he didn't have to keep her safe or that it would be impossible for him to keep her around. She was just as real to the doctor as she was to Belinda for the most part, I feel. But just I think kind of like we talked about last week, there was just too much going on in this episode, and it they didn't have enough time to really do much, if any, of it justice. I guess mostly I'm just glad they didn't try to shoehorn, as much as I would have liked answers on what's up with Susan. I'm kind of glad that she didn't get shoehorned in there.
Yeah, because they definitely did. I called it our last episode. They definitely gave it the Spider-Man 3 treatment.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have too much and you try to wrap it up and it just doesn't really work out. And then you have Sandman doing a monologue in front of Peter while freaking your best friend's bleeding out because he was a Green Goblin for 15 minutes. That type of treatment. It's kind of what we got here, unfortunately. Because you mentioned Poppy, I guess I'm going to jump into Poppy, the doctor's daughter, and Belinda's daughter. Supposedly,
It's like the
I say
weirdest thing
supposedly because it goes back and forth,
Yeah.
and I don't understand Poppy. I need to go into that. I don't understand why Poppy. Why the same child from Space Babies is their daughter. And I know there was that one line, that one throwaway line, that the doctor said that little memories, you and I, we created this, but it to me felt like it would have held a deeper meaning or more weight if their child was some child that we had never seen before.
Yeah.
I did because it Poppy just seemed like she was pulled from, like, everyone in Conrad's world was pulled from something else.
Yeah.
So Poppy wouldn't, in my opinion, I mean, granted, I'm not the writer of the show, and there might have been stuff cut out, in my opinion, would have not ceased to exist, but just would not have existed as her daughter anymore, would have just been Space Baby on the, the Loom ship or whatever again.
Yeah.
But if there was a child that we had never seen before that was it would have appeared, was created out of this wish, it would have appeared, in my opinion, as more of a miracle of life that Conrad's world had made something that was impossible. And that's why I don't understand why it had to be Poppy. They could have cast any child that we hadn't seen as this child, and I wouldn't care who they were. If I had never seen them before, it would have been like, who's this kid? And then when they say that it was a manifestation of the wish, they've been like, oh crap, that's why it's so important, and it would have held more weight to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it is kind of what Russell did last season, where it was like he stuck something in there to get people talking. I would imagine there might have also been like a practical aspect to it too, where like it is probably. I mean, I've never tried to cast anything, but I feel like trying to cast children, like child actors, must be like hard. So they at least knew that the kid knew how to behave on set. I don't know. And she's cute, but yeah, I would have to agree that it would have been less distracting and less weird if it hadn't been Captain Poppy.
Yeah,
As
and
much as it was delightful, as much as the actress is like utterly delightful. I don't know if you've
yeah,
seen the
she's
clip from
cute, she's
Unleashed.
adorable. I
Yeah,
freaking she's there's nothing wrong with the
yeah.
child in or of herself. It's just I
The
wish that the
casting was
character was,
distracting.
yeah, the casting, and also that the fact that it was the same name, so it just seemed like she was pulled from another place. So wouldn't she just go back to that same place if the wish
Right.
ceased to exist.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the I forget if it was Unleashed or just another behind the scenes clip that they posted online where they showed some of like her and Ncuti interacting when they were filming that last scene that they had together, and she's so funny and cute.
It's like, what are you wearing?
What
to
are you
Judy.
wearing? And then something about who are you? And she's like Doctor Who, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
adorable. Yeah, adorable kid. It just it felt like it was something that Russell did to get people talking, and after this episode, not for nothing, I do enjoy his writing overall. I don't want him sacked because this episode didn't work as well as I wanted it to, like some people do. But he needs to stop with the gimmicky stuff and do stuff for the story and not to get people online talking.
Yeah.
As much as I understand that that can be a metric for how well a show is doing, if he keeps doing this, people are going to stop doing theories because they are going to be just expecting it to be something stupid, you know.
Or we're going to end up having a Star Wars community. I said it. I said
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. But
um,
I,
but
I do think. Can we talk about like the stuff that we did love before we get even deeper into like critiques though? Like just our standout moments and performances in the
okay,
episode.
go for it. Go
We
for it.
should
Go
talk
for
about
it.
a
Go
little
for it.
bit. Um, I like honestly one of my favorite parts. Can I punch him? Yes, you can.
Yes, that was a
And she
nice
didn't get to
line.
punch him, which was a little disappointing. A little disappointing. I can appreciate
Yeah.
the you know being a bigger person and wishing for him to have a happy life so that he stops being a pain in everybody's butt. Um, but I did love that exchange between Ruby and Kate. Can I punch him? Yes, you can.
I'm going to jump on to an oddly somewhat positive, twisted positive. Don't get me wrong. It's a twisted positive about Conrad was that in his wish world when she was like thank you, like it could have been worse, it wasn't so bad. I assumed everyone would be getting wasted and you'd have like a bunch of women around you. And his reality, even though it was twisted, I want to emphasize that it was a twisted, he did attempt to make the world a utopian place for everyone by giving everyone what he thought was a happy life. And it was because of the interaction that he had on the TARDIS with the doctor that everyone just wants to feel safe and loved. And that did kind of set me like, I did kind of take a step back on him at that moment. Not, I didn't like him at all still, like, but I was surprised that he was showing like a little, it seemed like a little bit of growth in that, even though again, I'm focusing on it was a still a twisted world that he was making people live in. The fact that he was trying to do something that was nice for everyone um made him seem like 0.01 degree less of an asshole.
Yeah, not by much, but
Not
yeah,
by much,
not by
but it was
much.
growth. Barely.
Absolutely. So I mean, still, I mean, again, I'm trying to make this like a positive part of the episode, but like, I still want to know how much he understood or was aware of the Ronnie's plan. But you know, yeah, he was trying to be kind. He just lacked the full breadth of understanding that not everybody can be happy in the same situation. Um, yeah. Again, complex, we'll get into it later, complex feelings on the ending aside. I did love the Doctor and Poppy at the end. That was very sweet. Uncle Doctor was very cute. She was so sweet. I loved seeing, you know, a little bit more glimpse into Belinda's life. Again, complex feelings on that. I was so happy to see Anita. I was like, oh, so this is why Moffat said that he read the season 2 finale, but not the season 1
Yes.
finale when he wrote the Christmas special.
I
Well,
was going to focus on that too because I remember you
I'm not
mentioned
gonna
that.
lie. When that door started to open, I was like, "Are we about to have a Marvel crossover? Is this the TVA?" I was like, and then Anita popped up. I'm like, oh yeah, Magic Time Hotel. That's right. But for a good half a second before her face popped up, I'm like, is Loki about to come through that door? Is Lightning McQueen about to come through that door? That's not his name. I can't remember the actor's name, but he voiced Lightning McQueen.
I just, I know what you're talking about now, but I just imagine the door opening and then ka-chow!
I couldn't remember his name.
Owen Wilson? Isn't that his
Owen
name?
Wilson. Thank you.
As
Morbius, I think, is the
more,
character's name.
yes, but you said Lightning McQueen, and I just imagine the door opening and ka-chow! And then Mater just throwing him a tow hook and pulling him in.
There you go. Yeah, so I did love seeing Anita, even if I briefly thought we were getting the TVA in Doctor Who. I will say, as a slight aside, I desperately hope somebody at the LAX Marriott, where Gallifrey 1 is held every year, is a big enough Whovian that they will see this episode and they will make ribbons for the people at the hotel that with one of those "I'm just in hospitality" ribbons and
That's a
make a
good
ribbon out
idea.
of that.
Yeah.
I hope somebody does that. I might cosplay Anita just to make those ribbons. That would be fun. Um, another note that I did make. I wrote this down. I said there's something about the Doctor going along with the plan and then using the Vindicator to fight Omega off, while Ruby is the one to bring Conrad down with mostly just words. That's neat. Because of course, the Ronnie had that little speech about like, I wrote it down because I thought it was so funny.
Oh,
Um,
I know you came without any weapons. You'll
yeah,
just
I,
have
I
like
know
a
you
trick or
arrived.
a pun or
Yes.
something.
I know you haven't arrived with a weapon, only a speech, some dazzling words, maybe a pun, and then some lachrymose little tug at the heartstrings, mimosa-scented platitudes about the power of love. And so it was like kind of sweet that sweet and interesting that the Doctor is like kind of gives in to his own curiosity in the moment, and then has to fight Omega off to get him back into Narnia, I guess, or the Upside Down, which I thought that was hilarious that was the reference that he
Well,
made.
and then he mentioned
Um,
hell, which is
yes,
where I guess the rogue is also. Didn't they say he was in hell or something in the
something
underworld?
to that effect. I
Yeah,
don't know. But I just thought it was an interesting kind of parallel between the two. And I get why it was Ruby that went after Conrad because they're the ones who have the history. But again, I will talk about it in a bit. But Belinda in this episode, again, I wish she was in more of it. But
yes, agreed.
I did think that was an interesting thing where you have the Ronnie saying, "Oh, you're just here to talk," and the Doctor's like, "No, I'll go along with this because I'm interested in seeing what Omega's up to these days anyway too," and then fighting him off with a weapon. Meanwhile, Ruby uses her words to distract Conrad long enough to be able to get the baby and make a wish.
I am surprised that the Doctor never mentioned once that I can recall to the Ronnie that the when she's like I want that she finally reveals the plan that she wants Omega's DNA because it's pure Time Lord DNA, blah 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 blah. um, that the Doctor doesn't mention, well, there is no DNA. It's just his will. Like his essence is all that's left. There is nothing to extract. Or
And
like when they say like, "Don't you want to see him?" It's like, and doesn't. I like that he gave into the curiosity because I do feel like that is part of the Doctor, the dark side. Like when he did say yes, like, I did like that. However, there was nothing about I've I've seen Omega before. I know who he is. I know what he's about. There's nothing about that, and it would have probably changed the entire tide of the episode and the story. Um, but I still think it's something that's weird that wasn't thrown in there.
yeah, I did like briefly glance at like a summary of the episode that he's in with the Fifth Doctor, and I think I read something there was something about him trying to take over the Fifth Doctor's body. And then the other thing too is I think I talked about it a little bit last week or at some point before about how in the Time War they did find a way to resurrect and bring back Rassilon, obviously because we see him in End of Time, but the audios get a little bit more into the how and the why. So I'd imagine that possibly also during the Time War, they might have found a way to bring Omega back. I'm not sure. I'm not as up on that as the other stuff. But yeah, it was just, I don't know. It was a bit of an odd bit. Um, I will also say I love seeing Unit so much this season. I mean, because Kate Stewart, Gemma Redgrave is amazing, and the whole cast of characters that they have in Unit these days is great. I'm happy to see that we're going to probably see most of them in the spinoff whenever that comes. I
Which
also
looks
love,
very cinematic.
yes, it's very very like atmospheric too. I'm very interested to see it. We'll talk more about that later for sure. I also really as much as I know I've watched the episode, but it was once and it was years ago, so I don't like remember a ton of it. I did love Mel and Lorani's little spat, just the two of them, and I kind of feel like she was only in the episode to have that scene because there wasn't much that she did outside of that, but it was entertaining.
It was, and I want to highlight that because it's actually one of the notes I had, because it was both ridiculous and funny that Mel drove her little scooter all the way to unit headquarters to sit in an elevator apparently for about 40 stories just to
Yeah,
speed in there like a badass and take her helmet off. Like what?
it's so cool.
but but just I'm just like, she really just rode that thing, like sat on it in the elevator and just do 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 do
Yeah,
do 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 ding.
maybe maybe it's got some modifications like 11 Spike did in Bells of St. John. She can drive it up the side of the building.
Maybe it has anti-grav. Yeah, who knows?
Who
Probably
knows?
not though.
Probably not, but I wouldn't be shocked. Um, and again, I mostly want to get through this without talking about the end of the episode until we get to talking about that specifically. I don't know what it says about me that the first time I watched this episode all the way through, um, I was I, I am still angry, and I was angry when I watched it. But I was more in shock the first time I watched it because I could not believe that this was what I was watching. But the second time I watched it, I did cry. um, so it made me very emotional to see him go.
If
Um,
we want to talk about highlights of things that we enjoyed,
mhm.
I did enjoy seeing Unit Tower turn into a big Gatling gun, basically.
Yeah,
And not just that, like, I don't know why there's no guns on the sides of the building, but
right.
apparently there's no necessity for that because let's just turn the whole top of the building, which is the ridiculous stuff I love in Doctor Who. Like, it was so ridiculously campy that I was just like, yay, they're turning the building.
So silly, but I loved it so much.
Yeah, and something about the platform, how it was moving up and down on the side, was cool. It's
Yeah,
unnecessary, I think, but it
completely.
was cool.
Yeah. I'm like, why not? If you got the money for it, why not? I guess.
Yeah.
I think people are right to criticize a lot about this episode. There is a lot that could have been done better, but there is also a lot in this episode that was just fun, that was great Doctor Who, that was just fun sci-fi. Just it got a little muddled.
Well, there are some things where I think there were really good moments, but it was soured just enough to where if it was done slightly different, it would have had a different effect. Like
Yeah,
when Anita opened the door, I love Anita. I wanted more of her ever since we had that special. So when she came out, I was overjoyed. And when she's like, I've learned so much, and I'm like, hell yeah! Look at you, badass, strong, independent woman,
yeah,
and you're starting a family. And
yeah,
then when she's like, I was looking for you, on my days off, I would go looking for you. I was like, oh, that's so sweet.
yeah,
But the moment they got to her opening the door and saw the Doctor and the Rogue dancing, and I know that they had like a little like love tension in the special, so I understand that. But instead of her being happy for the Doctor, she seemed more upset. And specifically this, specifically the line, "I ran straight from that to Ricardo." No,
Yeah,
girl,
it wasn't
no.
necessary.
That was please, that that was not it. Like, we did not need that. Like, if she was just happy for the doctor and it was like, it was like, whatever happened to him, and was like happy for him, and he's like, oh, it didn't work out, and they moved on, it'd been great. But for her to say that it's made it sound like she was so sad to see the doctor with someone else that she ran into the arms of someone else. Like,
Yeah,
it that just spoiled her for the rest of the episode. And then after that, she was a doorstop. She had no
yeah,
relevance other than to be Hodor
yeah.
and hold the door open.
I mean, I
um
kind of get. I, I get that it's probably better to have somebody hold the door because you don't want it to slip and then have everybody slip back into the wish in like a second. But like, I feel like she could have done a little more than just stand there and hold the door open.
yeah, granted, when we did have when the doctor went to unit and she was opening the multiple doors, and she just looked like a certified badass, like, doing it, like,
With how many shows can you just have somebody opening a door and they look like a badass?
seriously. And Anita did,
Yeah,
but again, like, it was that one comment where she's like, I ran straight from that to Ricardo. Like, that did not
you didn't need
do
that
her
stuff.
character any justice, and
No.
I was really disappointed in that.
Yeah, because it felt like she had kind of gotten over that in the episode that she was in, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, we didn't need to keep that line in that it, Russell.
And also, if like, why didn't you would think that maybe if, like, there could be an interaction where, you know um she, like I said, like, oh, whatever happened to him, oh, it didn't work out, and then, like, she saves the rogue for the
Yeah,
doctor, like, opens the door and pulls him out because that would be his escape. I mean, you could have done that. Would it change the whole story? Probably. But I mean, it was another possibility for her character.
yeah. I think I'm as I keep ruining everybody's thoughts, hopes for Rogue. It's just that it came down to the fact that Jonathan Groff was busy.
Oh, I know. That's
I would
probably
imagine.
why we have. I know we're getting into the end. We're not going to talk about the end.
Right.
We're not going to talk about the end yet.
Yeah.
But I think that's why we got the regeneration, was because we don't know when filming or when the show will continue.
Yeah.
So it's, again, we talked about this last episode. It is unfair to Ncuti to sit around and not take other jobs when he's a certified badass right now and needs to, take those opportunities.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, we will of course continue to say nice things about the episode because there are more nice things to say about the episode, I feel. But I do want to get into the ending because we are 30 minutes in and we've barely touched like the last half hour of this episode.
I think I've only discussed maybe the first like 10 minutes. I have
Yeah,
a ton of
I
stuff.
know. I know. Um, but I mean, the first thing to talk about is what we thought of Belinda, the ending of Belinda's story here and her journey overall.
I'm still trying to rationalize it, and I'm still confused by it. So there has to be, we either have come to a reality at the end of the show or the end of the series where we're not in the same reality anymore, because we altered reality to save Poppy and bring her into existence. Now, but she's not the doctor and Belinda's child anymore. Bringing her into existence made her a human child with someone else, who apparently Belinda was traveling to get back to the entire time, which I guess doesn't bother me, but it also does bother me, because then that means the reality that we were watching in real time on the show, like episode to episode, was either rewritten or it wasn't the real reality in the first place. Because I know in her first episode that was, they said there was a thing, I don't remember the proper name, the flubba, whatever it was, when she was on the spaceship and
The
like
technical
everything
term.
flubba,
Yeah.
for a brief moment, maybe that's where reality warped and the timeline shifted. I Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. But we went from her seeing a random child in the story in the engine, not recognizing the child as her daughter, to having and to her not knowing this child was her daughter in the two-part finale either. Like when she comes out and she realizes, I'm Belinda Chandra. You're the doctor. Poppy, she's real? Like it was like she realizes that they have a kid and is just cool with it. Oddly, weirdly, out of nowhere, she's like, "We have a baby," kind of like not just how did this happen or wait, I didn't say yes to this or like you know,
Yeah.
like I have really weird mixed feelings about it because a lot of it doesn't make sense and I feel like some of it might be part of a bigger story, but that's also me reaching because I just want validation for what's going on.
Yeah. Um, Mostly my thought, it's not necessarily a bad ending for Belinda. It just, like I said earlier, was not set up properly at all. My biggest thing is that before this episode aired, before we got this story with her, at some point before this story, we should have gotten thoughts from her on parenthood and her having kids before this happened so that we could be more confident that it would be something that she's chill with, because not everybody wants kids. And
Yeah.
that's totally fine. I'm one of those people. Kids are cool. I just don't want one of my own. So without having any precedent from her, it's hard to know if what the doctor did was respective of what Belinda's own wishes would have been. I mean, obviously, she wants Poppy to be around. She's very like, even though she's very like, who's Poppy? We don't know who Poppy is. Let's gaslight Ruby for 5 minutes here. Um, just it without proper setup, it's you don't know if that is something that the original Belinda Chandra that we saw before would have been chill with. And given that she didn't love the doctor scanning her DNA in the first episode, but then was fine with him doing it to Poppy in the last episode, who knows? It
I
just wasn't set up properly.
I'm really glad you mentioned that and you said
Yeah.
original Belinda because correct. The doctor just scanned the child without asking again, which I was surprised. I thought the doctor would at least be like pull out the Sonic and be like, "May I scan her?" Like they did it again without regard. But this time Belinda had nothing to say about it when they were so adamant about like you need to ask before you do something like that in the first episode.
Yeah. And even within this episode, one thing that I think that could have been done better to strengthen the ending that she got would be a clearer division between Wish World Belinda and Belinda that's not under the influence of Conrad's world anymore, because she just felt very like it felt like she was still in some sort of dream state even after she was pulled out of the Wish world and cut off from the effects of the wish once they were in the time hotel. Like they're just I don't know how to put it into where she just didn't feel like herself even after she was pulled out of the wish.
Something
It
still
felt like
feels
there was
off.
still, yeah, like still lingering effects from the wish world. I mean, because this is, Belinda, we've seen her even after she's been kidnapped by robots and is on an alien world where she has no idea what's going on. She still goes and helps. She still goes and uses her skills as a nurse to help others. And in this episode, we're supposed to be just like, oh yeah, she's chill and she's just gonna go hide in a box with the child that may be hers.
Yeah. Well, they did say
Like
the
I
gods are
didn't
full of
love that
tricks,
she,
but yeah.
yeah, I get that, you know, you don't want to just put a kid in a box by themselves, I guess. But at the same time, it just felt not her character to be like, I'm just gonna go with this. kid and in this box when there were things that she might have been able to help with. It just kind of felt like she just needed to be written out of the way so that Ruby could go have her confrontation with Conrad and the doctor could go have his confrontation with Irani.
And I do want to focus on that a little bit since you mentioned it. The underutilization of Belinda yet again. We had this turned into Ruby's season 2 arc instead of Belinda's full on like series ending arc, because like even in Wish World we had Ruby being the one who was running around, who we were told we were specifically it was specifically emphasized that Ruby was just a normal person. She had a regular mom. She's just a normal person. So why do they keep trying to make her special in this season? Why is she the one who is able to see through realities or have her mind not be altered or whatnot? Um, there was a point where I when this episode aired, and all of a sudden Rosie showed up because I guess Conrad can't even fathom a transgender person, so they just don't exist in his world. Also the Vlinks, like the you tell me the Vlinks just was chilling in that box the whole time, like cool, someone will notice me eventually and I'll pop out when my time comes.
Right.
um but Rosie, okay, Rosie was a time child. Rosie was human plus DNA. Rosie has knowledge of the Time Lords and many things. Why was this Ruby's story? I would have actually liked the arc, the two-part arc, a lot better if Ruby wasn't as important in the Wish World. If it was Rosie walking around the world trying to figure out why nobody could see her and why everyone was treating her like a ghost, like she didn't exist. And she was the one that was pulling Ruby and everyone out of the Wish reality. And then Ruby could still have that interaction with Conrad and be important there. It would have felt more of an overall Journey's End arc where everyone had like a role and everyone was important. But even Rosie was there just as like a look what I brought, another cameo, because
Yeah.
even when they were talking about Poppy, Ruby was saying all the lines, and Rosie just kind of stood there and smiled. Uh,
Part of that, I do think, I mean, from what I have heard, the ending that we got was reshoots. Because if you look closely, Rose is not anywhere. Like after they go back in the TARDIS with Poppy and Poppy disappears, when they come back out, Rose is not there. So clearly, I guess the actress was not available for the reshoots, would be my guess. Which is too bad. But yeah, a lot of these characters just like kind of like I said with Mel, where it seemed like Mel was just there to have her little spat with the Ronnie and not much else.
yeah,
Mm. I will say I forgot to mention though, I did appreciate the music bringing back the Indigo device because that was also from Journey's End and and something that Martha used.
yeah.
I was like,
I,
ah, yeah,
that was a nostalgic cameo where I
yeah,
was like, oh yeah. It wasn't like a why.
yeah.
And we'll get into
Yeah.
that.
We'll get
Um,
into that for sure. I just also want to say the sentiment of I was meant to meet you so that we could have a baby is a super weird thing to put in Doctor Who, especially this season of Doctor Who,
now
and
that you
even more
say it in
so
that
with the
context,
last
it does sound
episode.
weird.
Yeah. I'm like, that's a weird thing to say. I mean, that's not exactly how they said it, but that's kind of what was implied. And I didn't like that very much.
Okay, yeah. I when you point it out, especially like that, I see it now. Okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it was, it was just a weird, I don't know. I didn't like, yeah, it just bugged me for, especially with, the whole messaging of the previous episode being like, not everybody's going to be happy in a nuclear family with a kid kind of thing. I was just like, especially because like Conrad is the one that like told the doctor Belinda's name, and that's why he went looking for her. It's like, oh, I was meant to meet you so that we could have this kid, and because I'm sure, like in the doctor, this winds up not being what happens, but I'm sure like the doctor was thinking like, oh, if this is my kid, and then she's like she's Susan's mother, and then Susan is my granddaughter, kind of thing, because Russell has somehow made it where like he hasn't had a kid yet that would be Susan. I don't know. It's getting a little weird. um, it was just a weird sentiment to put in Doctor Who, especially with this Doctor in this season and the messages that Russell seemed to want to be sending with the stories that he was doing.
Yeah. Um, talk about weird stuff. The Ronnie talking about how Conrad had dimples that you can serve olives off of was a
And he
rather
immediately
interesting
smiled, and I'm
thing.
like, yeah, she's not wrong.
Okay.
Well, he smiled immediately after, and he did have big, cute, deep dimples. And I'm like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
yeah, I see
deep
it.
dimples. Oh, okay. Well, I thought you meant like they were good enough to serve olives off of, or something. I don't know.
I understood where she was coming from because he immediately smiled. I'm like, oh, yeah, those are big, cute, deep dimples. Yes, I see what she's saying.
Now,
But yeah, it was weird for her to be like flirting with him in that moment. I'm like, why are you flirting with the human? Don't you not like humans? I don't understand what's going on.
and I'm still struggling to understand why he was specifically relevant or necessary in the first place. Because, like,
I
even
think I think it's because he had a will and a want strong enough to make the world better, and in a way that the Ronnie knew would make people doubt reality, because more people he didn't understand that not everybody's happy with like a traditional family setup.
I mean,
It's
maybe.
what I more want to know is why he went along with it and what she told him, because if the whole point was repeating the same day over and over and over again until reality snapped and the earth exploded, that's not really going to give anybody a happy life where they're safe and warm and fed.
Yeah.
So,
Well, she probably didn't tell him that part, I'm assuming.
I guess.
But, like,
Because I guess if
when.
he's inside the TARDIS, like he was revealed at the end, he wouldn't necessarily know that the world was cracking open every night.
Yeah. And when they found, when we realized that the TARDIS was in the Bone Palace and he was, the room was the TARDIS, it didn't, it felt like a forced plot point to me.
Yeah,
Like, but I guess maybe that's what the Conrad would have wanted anyway, was to be welcomed into the TARDIS, and that's the wish he got. But it still didn't make sense in regards to, because okay, so when the Ronnie comes in and addresses Desiderium, she says, "If only you were older, you could imagine such complicated things. Instead, I've got you." Like, why didn't she just wish for Desiderium to be older? Why? I still don't understand why she didn't just have Miss Flood be in charge of it. Um, I I I have comments and critiques about Miss Flood and the Ronnie also as an overall arc. Now that we know that the Ronnie was eaten in like 20 seconds of Omega coming in, and he was out in 30 seconds of that time total. Um, but
yeah,
I Conrad didn't seem like he was overly necessary in this episode at all. I know you mentioned maybe it was his whole, he was the one who could create reality good enough for them to sow doubt in, but I don't know it was if he was necessary.
yeah. I don't think it's necessarily that he was the one good enough to do it. He was just the one that the Ronnie knew would believe in what he was doing enough, but also have to lack enough understanding to make it fully believable, if that makes sense. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Where like he had a strong will, he thought, oh, this will make everybody happy and da 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 da, but without understanding that people will have different thoughts on how they want to live their lives. But the Ronnie knew that people would have different thoughts. Yeah, it gets a little messy. I feel like it could have been explained a little bit better.
I wish Miss Flood, at minimum, that Miss Flood, um, when she picked up the time ring and like, the Ronnie was eaten. She picked up the time ring, and I kind of wish that she had some like badass line before she departed, where she like all of a sudden got like a darker demeanor and was like, well, that experiment was a failure. I guess I'll move
Yeah.
on to my final phase, and then left. Like, if it was more like she was using like the Ronnie, like she was cowering to the Ronnie because she was allowing that Ronnie to take the forefront and be the focus of everything. So if it didn't work out, she can just carry on and continue like it was all part of the plan. That would have hit harder, I think, instead of her just saying, well, it's a good day for me, or whatever she said before
Yeah.
leaving.
Apparently, that's a joke about a show that I don't know anything about because I keep seeing people say it's a two Ronnies as ROINNE or RONNIE joke because apparently that's a line. So much for the two Ronnies. It's a good night for me is apparently a reference to something that I am not aware of, but apparently
I'm not
everybody keeps
familiar
saying that
with
it's
it
a
either.
reference to something. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, though.
Okay, well, I wish I knew, because that would be hilarious, I guess.
I'm sure. I'm sure because I've seen multiple people say, "Oh, did Russell T Davies invent by generation just to make that joke?" And I don't think that that would be a stretch, but especially considering because like that's the other thing that I kept thinking of as I'm like, okay, so potentially 14 and Donna are just out of that 10-mile radius for the microchip that Unit implanted everybody with, which made me think of a line in Kim Possible with Ron Stoppable because that's how my brain works. But like they never get mentioned, and it is irritating to me. I'm like, Russell, you specifically did this whole by generation thing. 14's on Earth somewhere with Donna and her family. Rose is here, but her mom's somewhere else.
Somewhere.
Like, what? Just even like, I don't want him to be. I wouldn't have wanted him to come back. That would have made this episode even more overbloated and complicated than it already is. But just like a line to like give a reason why he's not there and not helping. You know, just a line, just some sort of explanation for why
Even
14 and Donna were
even
not involved.
that, mentioning 14, and we talked about Miss Flood. I know the Ronnie, I guess, is dead because she was devoured. Um, I'm starting to get really this episode specifically. Um, I'm getting really annoyed of the Doctor saying the last of the Time Lords.
Yeah,
When the Doctor turned around and was like, "Who, it can only be done by one thing? Who? What? The last of the Time Lords." I'm
yeah.
like, bitch, Miss Flood is still out there, who's the Ronnie. You have a bi-regeneration running around. You have a child now, apparently, who is, I guess,
Where's
supposed to
Jenny?
be.
Where's Jenny?
Jenny's supposed to be out there. You know Omega still exists. Like, stop saying you're the last of the Time Lords.
He's a dramatic person. You gotta leave him alone, I guess. No.
But yeah, like that
I mean,
specifically,
there's
after
Susan's
seeing,
around
nope,
there somewhere too.
yeah,
It's like,
the Master's
dude,
out there. Yeah,
I know you like the
somewhere.
drama. I know you like the drama, but holy cow, dude. I don't want David Tennant involved every single time that there is a world-ending event in 21st century Earth. However, you need an explanation for why he's not showing up.
So Anita, before she left, she went to the boss. Oh, they told me to tell you hi, hello. Who? The boss, but plural. They could be a they them, could be non-binary,
Mm-hmm.
or could be a they them multiple. The boss singular, as in the doctor. Multiple could be like maybe 14 and the curator are running the time hotel. And that's how they know what's going on.
I have seen people theorize the boss as being Susan. I don't know. That's an interesting thought, though.
Yeah,
It
but
is one of those threads that we just have to hope gets addressed.
some at some point. But I did enjoy that. I did enjoy the doctor. One line, that one thing that I always need, that one little thing. Oh, okay, park that, and then
Yeah.
carried on. Like, we'll visit that later. Cool. I love that.
Yeah,
It's not, we know we're not going to address that now. We know we're going to address it later. Thank you for that one little statement.
yeah, yeah. I think we do finally have to talk about the regeneration. We are almost an hour into this episode.
But I have so much to say still. Ah!
Okay, let's keep talking about that. We'll keep talking about other stuff.
Okay.
We are an
I
hour
guess
in.
it's,
Come
yeah,
on,
yeah.
who's gonna
So
beat us?
please bear with us. Bear with us. If you need to, actually, if you need to, this is a great moment for you to get up, take a break, take a walk, get something to drink, stay hydrated, maybe get some food, relax, take care of yourself, and then come back. Hey, welcome back.
Yeah,
um, So I guess this was during the Flux event, because I will admit the Flux event was something I watched once. I didn't go back to it. Um, it was another one of those things where I felt like it built up so much and then it just fizzled off.
yeah.
So I didn't really go back to watch it again. But I didn't really get the genetic explosion. I thought they meant like the eradication of the Time Lords, but I guess it was something that made them all sterile, and I that's something I guess during the Flux, but it was because Time Lords. This, if Time Lords were always sterile, this would change everything canonically. Because even in the 50th anniversary, the War Doctor, t- points out to themselves, "Did you ever count how many children there were on Gallifrey that day? Like there have been Gallifreyan children. Are there Time Lord children? I don't know, because there's still debate on, are Time Lords and Gallifreyans different. Time Lords are Gallifreyans, but not every Gallifreyan might necessarily be a Time Lord. So where's that genetic explosion thing fit in on the Doctor Who timeline?"
I don't. So remember, I talked about looms and
Yes.
Longbarrow last. Yeah, there's kind of something in there with that as well. It's called Pythia's Curse. I don't know if that's what Russell intended to canonize in Doctor Who, possibly. Um, but it's a thing in extended Doctor Who lore where the Time Lords have been sterile, and that's why they used the looms to create, kids. Though I guess from like what I was reading up on it a little bit, it didn't like create children. It created like fully formed adults who like needed to be taught stuff and everything. Um, but just to read the Doctor Who wiki, Pythia's curse of sterility was imposed on the Gallifreyans by the 508th Pythia during her suicide. Driven to desperation by Rassilon and the neo-technologist's denouncement of magic, as well as her personal inability to find her successor, the 508th Pythia cursed Gallifrey to wither and threw herself into the crevasse of memories that will be.
Yeah, which is no answer to anything within the not cinematic universe, but the on-screen universe.
Yeah,
But like I because it contradicts like specifically the 50th specifically highlights it, because even in the flashbacks where you see like the Daleks attacking, you see kids, you
exactly.
see children on Gallifrey. So I don't know
I,
where
I,
that specifically fits in.
I think what Russell was going for was probably more because we see that like weird. Again, I also haven't revisited the Flux stuff in a hot minute or much of 13's era, to be honest. I know there was the whole thing with the Master turning them all into Cybermen, and then
Mm-hmm.
there was like the explosion of regeneration energy that like killed them? Question mark. So
Question
there
mark.
was some sort of genetic explosion. How that affected the Doctor and the Ronnie, I'm not entirely sure. Um, but it was a weird it was a weird thing. I think they could have just I don't know. It was weird.
Now, you want to hear a crazy theory slash idea I have that's going to be part of a two-part? It's going to be a slow burn.
Okay.
Um, First part is I don't understand why the Ronnie didn't just use the Doctor to extract DNA from, or why the Doctor didn't at least say, if you're going to extract DNA from me. I'm the timeless child. I'm all the Time Lords base their genetic markers off of to regenerate, because I am a child from another dimension or reality or whatever. Like I don't get that. But then I started thinking it's far fetched. It's ridiculous. Everyone would probably hate it. But what if Poppy was the timeless child? What if
Yeah.
Poppy is the doctor? What if Poppy, being born of a wish with human on the mother's side, human on the mother's side, um, was born of the wish, and then upon something happening or natural death or whatever, starts to regenerate, but just starts regenerating over and over because they were born of a wish, and that wish never died. That wish just keeps living. And that's where the timeless child comes from. And the doctor was never born of any race or born of anything, was born of the wish of a god, and was basically fathered by himself.
I'm my own grandpa.
Yes. um I'm sure nobody would like that idea. I would probably scoff at the idea too, but it's something that's out there now that could be a possibility. Granted, he did scan her and say she's 100% human, but nothing's sacred in the show. Everything's subject to change.
Yeah. Yeah, my thing with it was like I understand that the doctor assumes that Jenny is dead, but like Jenny's out there. I mean, she's got her own audio series for crying out loud now. I mean, like, and she was like a genetic clone of the doctor. Like, whatever. I think it would be fun to see Georgia Tennant come back as in the show, but clearly that's not the story that we were going
Yeah.
for here.
I do have to say though, I did respect a little bit when the Ronnie was like, I just want the DNA and then I'll leave your world alone. Like just give me what I want, and I don't want to hurt you. I don't care. I just want to do this and then take off. And then it turned into the doctor being like, "No, you can't because of this kid right here that I
Yeah,
just met, which is their daughter." But
yeah,
still,
yeah.
um
I mean, because that is, you know, for as much as I'm sure people are like, why did he try so hard to bring her back? Da, 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 like, that's kind of the core of the Doctor's, you know, characterization, especially with the 50th, where there was so much discussion about how many children were on Gallifrey the day that he ended the war the way that he did originally. The Doctor is always going to try to save as many people as he can, even apparently when he can't remember them perfectly. And I think that's something that's beautiful about the character, even if it turns into really heartbreaking things that happen at the end of this
oh my god,
episode.
I love that line in Face the Raven, where the doctor is just 12 is going off the rails and Claire just puts him in his place. Like, your reign of terror will end at the sound of the first crying child, and you know it. It's
Yeah,
like, oh, right
yeah,
there, just put him in his place.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Ugh. Like, I love the character of the Doctor so much. Like, yeah, we get different versions of the character throughout the show, but just at the heart of the character, the Doctor is somebody who cares so deeply and would do anything to save the people that they care about. And I love that.
One minor thing that I did love about this episode. Someone said the quiet part out loud. The thing I was thinking in the moment when
Oh,
the
yeah.
oh no, something. I don't know if we're thinking the same moment. Um,
Okay.
so the doctor called the Ronnie's little floating Segway over. Um, he jumped on it, and he's like sitting there standing. If we die today, I love you a lot. And then,
Yeah.
then it's like, just shut up and go. Like, like yes. I was like, why are you talking? Just take off. And then she said
Go!
that. I was like, yes, someone said the quiet part
There.
out loud. Thank
Yeah.
you. And then he took the most scenic indirect route up there.
Like, dude, are we singing Defying Gravity in our head as we're flying? Just go. Just go.
It was a straight shot up, but no, you had to go down under the bridge and do loops around the bone dinosaur or whatever.
Gravity. Dude. I will say, I mean, so I am usually really good about being able to avoid the leaks. It's just not something I go looking for, and for the most part, the people that I follow online don't post them. I
Same.
had
I try to avoid too.
kind of seen some rumors about him regenerating in this episode. I had seen one video where somebody was making fun of the idea of who winds up popping up at the end of this episode popping up at the end of the episode. Um, and so when he did say, "If we all die, if we all die today, I love you all," at that moment, I did go, "Oh no." But then I kind of forgot about it, and then he was like, I really liked this face, and I screamed at my TV.
I screamed when I saw Jody.
Yeah. Well,
And
okay, let's okay, so we are getting into the thoughts
we are getting
on the
into certain
regeneration
parts, I guess.
and
And we could go back if we need to.
yeah, and
Um,
who he sees regenerated. Yeah. I mean,
I
we're an hour and 7 minutes into this episode. We do need to talk about the elephant in the room.
um I have to admit, and this was on me. This was on me. I overhyped myself in that moment because I thought we were going to get to see a couple doctors at least
Mm.
in the TARDIS, and it was only Jodie, and it was great. But for me, like in the moment, I thought we were going to see others, and I was waiting, and then we didn't, and I was like, "Oh, okay." And I watched it again, and I still enjoy it. Like, but I overhyped myself because I knowing that we had Tennant in there before already, and that we saw Jodie here. I thought we were either going to get like Matt Smith, or maybe we were going to get Joe Martin in there again, or
Hmm.
something. Like at least if we had Joe Martin again too, I would have been like freaking amped. Um,
Yes. I was surprised because so then like I had kind of thought, oh, maybe they filmed that like literal 5-second cameo in conjunction with something else, so I was kind of shocked when she didn't show up again.
yes. Um, so that was on me. That's nothing wrong with her interaction or that scene or whatever. I overhyped myself because once I saw her, it opened my mind to like, what else are we gonna get?
Yeah. Yeah. Um I I am just utterly heartbroken, and I might start crying again because I did, like I said, I started crying when I watched the episode a second time, just because instead of like being in shock, I knew it was coming. Um, I'm heartbroken that our time with Shooty is over. 15 has very quickly become one of my favorite actors. He has been such a delight to watch.
He has been such a joy.
It has been such a joy. It has been so special because of Temple of Geek and because of this podcast, I got to twice be part of a virtual press conference where I got to ask Shooty or ask questions of this TARDIS team, which was the coolest thing. Um, and I'm just heartbroken that it's over because he has been so special and so amazing. Had so much joyful energy. Like, for his last words to be, "This has been an absolute joy." I could not think of better last words for this doctor because it has been a joy to watch Shooty play the doctor.
Yeah,
I am crying now. Um, he has just been so special and such a delight. I mean, I know I keep repeating myself, but it's true. He has been amazing to watch. I am so sad that we're not getting more of his doctor. I really hope that, you know, maybe we'll see him again in a multi-doctor episode. I feel like he'd be down for that. He seems like he enjoyed his time enough on the show that he would come back if asked. But to only get 2 seasons of 8 episodes plus, you know, the specials that he was in, it was just too short.
it
It
was.
really was. I wish the best for him. I can't wait to see, because I would imagine that part of this decision has come down to other things that he has been offered to work on, and rightfully so. He's got other things he wants to do. Um, I'm sure in time we'll find out more about why, exactly he decided to leave the show at this time. But I'm sad it didn't work out for him to stay longer. You know,
Well, I
um,
mean,
I
it's
mean, there's even the
most likely
line,
the uncertainty of the show, like as far as
right,
when it'll continue.
right. I mean, there's even the line that he has with 13 where he says, "I wish we had longer," and she says, "May we always wish that." And I think that was also a really beautiful line. Because you know, I don't think it would have been possible for Ncuti to overstay his welcome as the Doctor. Um, but it is good to go out on a high note, I suppose, as much as we would love some of our favorite Doctors to stay for much longer than they did.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm sad to see him go. I really, really am, because he has been just utterly delightful to watch. I can't wait to see what else he does. I don't, as part of that, I'm sure we won't see him at Big Finish in like for another decade because he's busy.
Yeah.
um,
Rightfully so.
but he's so lovely, and I'm so glad we had him as the Doctor. I wish we could have had him longer, but I'm glad that we had him for while we did.
And it's rather unfortunate that we don't have him for longer, because I know series wise we had him for 2 seasons. Um, but in total, and this wasn't my count, so if I remember this incorrectly or if whomever I'm quoting got this incorrect, please correct me. Um, those 2 seasons only totaled 3 episodes more than Eccleston had in his 1 season.
Yeah,
So even those 2 seasons were too short of a time for us to have had, if compared to if we had 2 regular seasons with him, which would have been lovely.
yeah. I will. I do.
Because he was a
the
joy. You can make me break down now.
I did. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. As like sad as other episodes of Doctor Who have made me, I think it's the first time that I've actually like properly cried watching an episode of Doctor Who. Like I've been like really deeply sad watching Doctor Who before, but I think it was the first time like actual tears happened.
For in the moment, for me, I didn't cry.
Yeah,
I
like I
watched
said,
it.
first time I watched it, I was just in shock and kind of angry, and I
Yeah,
still am kind of angry. Um, but it was a beautifully acted scene. I think very well written. Um, I also deeply appreciated the. I'm surprised it's not the other guy. He's always turning.
I loved that comment so much. They just burned themselves so hard with that. I
Yeah.
freaking love it. I'm glad they pointed that out.
There's a line that David, I think it was when it was either right before or during the press stuff for the 50th, and somebody asked him about returning to the show, and he says, "Oh, I'm an old whore. I'll turn up for anything." So it was really funny that he was specifically called out. It's like, I'm surprised it's not him. He's always turning up.
But then they went and they were funny. But then they went immediately into quoting him twice. Oh, you were
Yeah.
decorated. I don't like it. And then,
Well,
oh, it's a bit
that is
timey
originally
wimey.
you redecorated. I didn't like it as originally a second Doctor line.
True.
Yeah, but
Tennant
yeah,
did to it too.
he did.
Yeah. And
He
then the
did.
timey wimey. I did
He
love the
did.
interaction. I loved the interaction between Jodie
It was
and
so
Ncuti.
sweet. It was so
Like,
sweet because they're
oh,
both.
is that still a thing? We
Yeah,
never do change, do we? I'm doing a terrible
so
accent.
sweet.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry for that. I don't know why I'm even
it was
doing.
so sweet. And now I know exactly what cosplay I'll wear if I ever get to meet Shooty, because we'll get into this a little bit in a little bit here, but technically at this point, I even after the regeneration, I have pictures with all except Shooty Gatwa for the traditionally numbered doctors in New Who.
Oh, nice.
Because I did meet the person that he regenerated into at my first Gallifrey one in 2014. So, um, yeah. But yeah, this has been an absolute joy. What a line for this doctor specifically to go out on, especially Jody. 13 kept mentioning his lovely smile. I'm like, yeah, his lovely
Yeah,
smile.
her giving him the pep talk of, I put it
Yeah.
down here somewhere. Um, like when she got all serious, like, are you scared?
Mhm.
And it's like, um, don't go in fear, go with a lovely smile. And it's yeah, he's exactly what he did.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then the lights went out and led him to the door.
Yeah.
I do have questions on that though,
Yeah. I'm not
because I
sure.
mean, I love that he opened the door. Actually, let's focus on this first. Sorry, shifting gears. Um, it wasn't just an absolute joy. He didn't want to be alone and was with Joy, the North Star, and I loved that. That was sweet. I loved that.
That was sweet. Yes.
Um, but the regeneration. So we went from blowing the TARDIS up every single generation to take the shit outside.
Yeah.
Um, but this regeneration seemed to have a lot. I don't know if this was just visual effects, like an aesthetic thing, like it just looks cool, or if there are going to be repercussions for, because it looked like a lot of regeneration energy going out into space in a number of directions, not to mention the kind of supernova type thing that it created um, right before, like right at the beginning of it. Um, and Jody 13 had pointed out, like, you're going to create a something, a something. There's a specific something, a time, a
A time
temporal
fracture, a
distortion,
time rupture.
a
Yeah.
temporal rupture or something.
Yeah.
And I'm not convinced that that didn't still happen, because he's like, "Are you going to talk me out of it?" And she's like, "Oh, that was never going to work," and
Yeah.
tells him a different way of how to do it. So this leads me back, unfortunately, into are we still in the right reality or not? Are the repercussions of everything that's going to happen? And also, when he, like, I thought he was going to bust his shirt open and, like,
Yeah. I did too.
beam it out of his chest, which I thought was going to be weird. But
They have a Superman moment.
when he pulled it out like this and started stretching it, I thought
Yeah.
that was cool. But
Yeah.
then when he whipped it up like lassos and, like, started beaming it down the TARDIS, I started thinking, does the TARDIS ever get tired of his shit? Does the TARDIS ever, like,
Gotta.
this hurts? Would you mind stopping? Like, maybe don't. Maybe just
Can we
stop.
not?
Can we not?
Just don't.
Sorry, I know I detoured onto all the other things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's all
Like
part of the whole
I
regeneration.
yeah.
Yeah,
I again I am desperately sad that we are losing Ncuti as the doctor because he has been so great. Um and I am torn between being impressed that they were able to keep it as secret as they was. Again, apparently there were leaks, whatever. They were able to keep it pretty secret. And he deserved to have people know that it was his send off because every other doctor that's regenerated, it has been an event. It has been shown before, it has been discussed beforehand that the doctor will regenerate in this episode, and everybody makes a huge thing out of it. I know Monica talked about, she messaged me how she was like kind of actually upset that she just watched it on her break at lunch instead of like having making it a big event or whatever and having people, do it, watching the episode with other fans. Um, and I feel like he got cheated out of that a little bit. But at the same time, it was impressive they were able to, for once in the show's history, make that a surprise as much as I didn't want it to be that surprise.
yeah, and we talked about the possibility of him leaving the show too, so it didn't surprise me. What surprised me, are we gonna get into that?
Yeah, we can't ignore
Okay.
it for that
What
much longer.
surprised me was we didn't fade to black. I
Yeah.
thought we were going to get the regeneration. It was going to cover his face and then curtain.
Hmm.
What I did not expect was not only to see somebody else staring at me in my screen,
Yes.
breaking the fourth
Very
wall
clearly
yet
the fourth
again,
wall. Uh-huh.
Like, why do we keep breaking the fourth wall? It's very awkward. Um, it's very awkward.
Yeah.
But not only just seeing somebody else, but to see Billie Piper.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just gonna say this as the Doctor because they are clearly in the same outfit.
Mm-hmm.
The credits do not credit Billie Piper as the Doctor.
No.
The credits of the show just say introducing Billie Piper.
Mm-hmm.
But don't play with me. Don't play with me like that. She's wearing the outfit. She's wearing the same clothes. She regenerated as a proper Time Lord does, and not like David Tennant in other clothing. Now, if they're going to go ahead.
I love Billie Piper. She is a fantastic actress. You know, there's reasons why when it has become a published thing that they are looking for the next Doctor and that they will be announcing the next Doctor soon, that her name gets brought up. She is fantastic. But how it has happened, I am angry about it because I, mm, there might be practical reasons for it. I'm assuming there are practical reasons for it, but having this happen immediately after a Doctor, because the same thing happened with Jodie, where because the casting of the Doctor was a bit, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Because the casting was, you know, not traditional casting and became controversial when it shouldn't have been controversial, and then they're going to fix it with nostalgia bait. And again, I love her as an actress. I think she will be interesting to watch in this role, whatever this winds up being, but it just kind of made me angry how it has happened.
Yes, I fully agree with this. I am disclaiming that I'm not hating on Billie Piper,
Yeah, oh, exactly.
her
That's, yeah,
capabilities
be very
or
clear.
anything like that. I just feel
Nothing
that
else.
it's distasteful. Um,
Yes.
I and it wouldn't be distasteful if I didn't feel like we were getting nostalgia baited again because I already had my comments on bringing Tennant back. Um, but now we're bringing Billie Piper back, and now we're going to have a bi-generated 14 and 16 10 rows together running around like I'm not right as of this moment. Things could change. I'm always open, but as of this moment, I am not for it. And don't play games with me saying introducing Billie Piper and not calling her the Doctor, because unless she goes by some different name like the War Doctor and like the Fugitive Doctor, but but
But even
but
then, the
but
credits, they
even still,
say as the Doctor.
if if they play some freaking game and say she says at some point, "I'm not the Doctor." Oh, I'm not the Doctor. Call call me the Bad Wolf. I will fly to the UK and there will be hands thrown. I will be livid if they do
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, my it kind of based on things that I've been thinking about and other things that I've been seeing people saying online. My thought, and I think Monica said this as well when I was talking to her about it, is that it is incredibly likely that this is just for a Christmas special that they will be filming shortly to air later this year. And, you know, she's worked with Russell before. Obviously, she's been on the show before. She has a
Yeah.
working relationship with Russell. She was somebody that they could bring back that would make headlines and that has a good working relationship with the studio. And so hopefully it's just for the one episode. I mean, the other thought that I had is that somehow, you know, because I think it's pretty clear that Russell wants to bring back Gallifrey. He just didn't wind up doing it in this episode because he was like, this is, you know, trying to show that how the Ronnie was going about it was the wrong way to do it or whatever. So I wonder if this is like the moment taking over the doctor's body somehow. I don't know, but you know, I think that she's not going to wind up being the doctor proper. I don't know what the explanation is going to be. As angry as I am about the casting, I am willing to hear them out on what the reason is and what the story is for it. But yeah, between her just introducing Billie Piper, because even with John Hurt, even with Joe Martin, when those episodes came out, it said as the Doctor.
Yeah.
This just says introducing Billie Piper. Even in so if you look at the Doctor Who website in their little write up about Ncuti regenerating at the end, it talks about Billie's return. And I gotta bring this up. And so Billie says, they have a quote from Billie, and it says, "It's no secret how much I love this show, and I've always said I would love to return to the Whoniverse as I have some of my best memories there. So to be given the opportunity to step back on that TARDIS one more time was something I just couldn't refuse. But who, how, why, and when, you'll just have to wait and see." So clearly they're being weird about it, because even the way that, like, there's another sentence just with it's not anybody talking, it's just the way that the article is written. As everyone said farewell to this iconic doctor, they also got sight of a very familiar face as the doctor regenerated, and it was none other than Billie Piper. So it very specifically worded to, like,
Yeah.
insinuate, oh, she's the new doctor, but also, like, it's also carefully worded where, like, no, that's not exactly what they're saying. So clearly something is up. I
Well,
don't know what it is.
even if it was for
As
one
angry as I
episode.
am interested to see what they do with it. Just the way that Russell has written the past couple season finales, where stuff gets built up to be this big mystery, and then it's not that interesting of an explanation. I don't know how much faith I have in it, but I am willing to see where this goes.
Well, even if it was just for one episode, one special, it would have been, if there's only someone that was like sitting around. I'm not saying sitting around doing nothing, but if there was only someone who they could have cast as nostalgia bait, um, to help bring the show back. I mean, it would. I guess there was no other choice because I guess you don't have Joe Martin. That would have been great to
Yeah,
use,
that would have been
even if it was
amazing.
a filler. I would have freaking loved to have Joe Martin, because like even in the story in the engine, and it's like, am I someday my story will be complete? Just give us a special where where Joe comes back and dives into who am I.
Yeah.
Perfect. I would applaud that. I've been so stoked. Or I saw one comment. I saw one comment that said, "Why not Paul McGann?"
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Hello?
That would have been. I would have
Man's
like
gorgeous.
freaking
Hello?
gone nuts if it was Paul
Yeah,
McGann.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Again, Billie is a fantastic actress. I'm looking forward to seeing what she does with it. But the other thing too is, again, they're being weird about, oh, is she the doctor, is she not the doctor, kind of thing. I don't see a world in where a doctor played by Billie Piper is written that differently from the 13th Doctor. Which I don't mean that as an insult to either of the actresses, just like they have very similar vibes. And the Doctor is often written to be very tailored to the actor who is playing them. I just don't see him being that different of a doctor, and I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I do want to say this also as a side note. Do like I'm not against nostalgia baiting. I love nostalgia. Indigo Device was like, hell yeah. Bring Mel back. Hell yeah. You got to see Rosie again. Hell yeah. We got Donna back, and I got to also see Wilfred. Fuck yeah. But as far as the Doctor, the casting of the Doctor, like I had my words when Tennant came back because it felt like nostalgia bait. I didn't think it was necessary. Um, I have nothing against Tennant. I love Tennant. He did a great job as 14, but it didn't feel right. This doesn't feel right in a show that is so progressive. It's a show about time and space, and overall it's about time. The passage of time. Things change. Things constantly evolve. Why are we moving backwards?
Yeah. Especially, I mean, again, nothing against Billie, but also why bring her back for this is like the third or fourth time she's been brought back to the show, if you include Journey's End and the 50th. Like, again, I love her. I love her, but I feel it would have been great to see, maybe Freema, even Catherine Tate playing the Doctor would have been great.
I
You know,
still don't.
I
I'm
don't,
still
but at
not
the
sure
same time,
about any
again,
of the
I
companions,
just
though.
right.
I,
At
I,
least at least none of the like season long companions. If we wanted to do like again, Andrew Garfield as the Doctor would be phenomenal. But like I feel like it would be better if it was like somebody who had been like a companion for an episode. Kind of like how, Karen Gillan and Peter Capaldi were in Fires of Pompeii and then they went on to have bigger roles. When it's
yeah,
somebody who has already had such a ginormous role, it's like give somebody else a chance too, right?
I think the only two previous people I would have liked would have been Joe Martin or Paul McCann.
Yeah.
Um, Other than that, in my opinion, that means nothing to anybody but myself. I think I would have rather, if it wasn't them, which obviously it wasn't, I would have rather have had it fade to black and then have them go through extensive casting um, to continue the show properly.
Yeah. Again, I will be shocked if we don't like within the next week or two get an announcement like, oh, we are starting to film this year's Christmas special with Billie Piper as whoever. I don't think again they're probably be very careful how they word it. Um, like I'd be shocked if that's not the plan because like I feel like Doctor Who doesn't want to give up its Christmas slot. I guess it's just a matter of like, are they going to wait for Disney or not? We'll see. Yeah, we'll talk about this in a bit too, but I don't see why Disney wouldn't continue with the show. But I just have a feeling that it's more than anything a practical thing where Billy was available for whatever they might be filming. Because also I'm kind of surprised that we got a trailer already for the War Between the Land and the Sea. Like I thought that was going to be a next year thing, but they're saying coming soon. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I will say though, the other thought that I had after I kind of got over my initial like anger at the situation is that the fanfics are going to be really funny about this.
Yeah, Ten Rose is gonna start going off
It's gonna be
in a
weird.
really weird
It's gonna
direction.
be funny.
It's gonna be Master and Missy level of weird.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, well, mm. So like, hopefully we get an answer sooner rather than later on exactly what the situation is, or the fandom's gonna take it to a real weird place really, really quick.
It's probably already there.
Oh,
In all
I'm sure.
honesty, like
I'm sure.
it was. It, Russell T Davies posted Rose the Billy Piper chair like the second the episode finished airing on Disney Plus. Disney posted the regeneration on
Yeah.
there. Some people didn't even get to watch the episode. They're like, really? I'm getting spoiled by
No.
BBC Doctor Who's Instagram. Like, I haven't
I
even gotten
saw
home yet.
I follow Rachel Stott on Blue Sky. She is a very talented comic artist. She does Doctor Who comics. She does a lot of Marvel stuff.
She did a lot of the 13 books, I know.
Yes. I saw her post and she said she was working at her parents' house and the news, like the actual TV news, spoiled Doctor Who for her before she was able to watch the
Oh,
episode.
jeez.
Like, man, sometimes like I forget how seriously they take Doctor Who in the UK, but like, dang, that sucks. To be spoiled by the news for your fictional TV show. Oh my word. Like,
You
I guess
know,
even like ITV, who is like technically the BBC's competitor, even their news was talking about this episode, which is funny.
there was part of me when I watched it the second time that had this very bad feeling about something that was said at the end of the episode and then Billie Piper not being addressed as the doctor, like maybe she'll take on some other name, is that Belinda had called the Doctor Bad Penny, and that maybe because of Penny Dreadful, which would be a meta style joke, the Doctor would call themselves the Bad Penny.
Oh my. I think the fandom would revolt against RTD even more than they already want to be honest.
But they highly, he's like, oh, I like that.
Yeah, again, I do think it's something. It's going to wind up being something tied to the moment. Is my main theory at the moment, but also as much as like some of Russell's, reveals and ways he's wrapped up stuff recently have been underwhelming. He can also do really good reveals as well. So I don't want to get my hopes up too high, but I am willing to see what happens. I guess.
And I guess there, yeah, you mentioned reshoots. I guess there might have been like an alternate ending of the series based on like if Ncuti was staying on board or not.
Yeah, because I,
Um,
I I wonder if one of the thoughts that I wrote down because I did want to talk about what we think might happen in future seasons because he said Russell has said before that he has more has season 3 pretty much planned out and he's been working on writing it and he has plans for future seasons even past that. I wonder if perhaps Finding Poppy was originally intended to be like a season long thing rather than a let me regenerate, you know, and bring her back thing.
yeah, because the search for Poppy could have been like an entire season where
Yeah,
they go
easily.
looking for their daughter. Even Ruby could have been a part of that. It could have been a three TARDIS team.
Yes. Yes. That would have been great.
Would have been great. They
I'm
could have
so
split
excited.
up. They could have split up. Rosie could have gone off with Tennant, and they could all be searching for Poppy.
There you go. Oh,
Involve
one other
everyone.
thing I wanted to say before we got off, the talking about the regeneration is for the Ronnie in this episode specifically to say find a stupid blonde Earth girl and there you are is like wild work considering who pops up at the end. I'm not calling Billie Piper stupid. I want to be clear, but like it's kind of a dig at both Ruby and Rose. Even though they're both very smart characters. Ronnie's
Yeah,
being mean, but it was like just kind of a funny thing to put in this episode. Which, granted, at the time, who knows, when he wrote it, what his plan was, but like for that line to make it in, which I just thought was funny.
yeah. One thing I did hear see someone mention. I don't know who it was. Like I just been consuming random things online, so forgive me for that. Um, One of the things was the Doctor pumped all that regeneration energy into the TARDIS, and I guess was in that moment possibly connected to the TARDIS, and the last person that was connected to the heart of the TARDIS was Rose Tyler when she became the Bad Wolf. So maybe that was part of it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not
I'm not.
saying that it justifies it for me. I would still have liked it to have been someone else or just hold off on the casting. But storyline wise, maybe there's something there.
Yeah, like I again, I'm interested to see where they go with this. Just I find it maddening that they're already resorting back to nostalgia bait to try to win people back. Because I'm like, I'm sorry, if you didn't win people back with bringing David Tennant back for 3 episodes for the 60th anniversary and Catherine Tate, I don't think you're gonna win those people back at this point. And possibly good riddance if they're gonna be, only come back to watch David Tennant and not be even willing to consider other people playing the Doctor.
I almost feel like it was more of a we don't have anything renewed. We don't have a contract. We don't have a timeline. So let's get everyone talking about it and blow it up as big as we can. Um, so they sign us right away. That's
Yeah,
kind of what it feels like, but it still doesn't justify it for me.
right. Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, the BBC intends to continue with this show no matter what Disney winds up deciding. Um, it's just then they're gonna have to figure out who will have the show going on for the rest of the world because you don't want to. I'm like, you don't want to lose the rest of the audience outside of the UK. Like, come on. So I don't know. I think we've covered mostly everything in this episode. So just, we gotta start wrapping up because we're coming up on like an hour and 40
Thank you all
of the
for
recording. Thank
sticking with
you.
us if you've made it
Yes.
through this. Um, if you have any comments yourself about the episode or any emotions, um, with respect, please make them tasteful and not hateful. We have a lot of emotions, and there are a lot of things that um, when we hold dear. Yes, I understand being upset about things, but let's all treat this with the level of respect that we would like everything to be treated with. So, if you have things to say, if you have comments yourself, please leave them. But again, make the space a keep the space a welcoming space, because that's what we always want. We want this
Exactly.
community to thrive constructively.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, just what are I want to talk about our overall thoughts about this season and our thoughts and hopes for the future of the show, and maybe we can talk a little bit about the long titled spin-off that will be coming soon apparently.
So, I other than Lucky Day, which is still the thorn in my side on this season, I really enjoyed this season up until the end. Um, and mainly that has to do with the end of the season being a Ruby, Ruby takes over Doctor Who season 2. This was Belinda's season, and I felt like she was underutilized at the end. I feel that watching the last episode, probably I think 3 times now, because all she did was she was a housewife. She went out. She screamed at the fact that she didn't remember the birth of her daughter, but then all of a sudden was connected to her daughter, and then sat in the box. And Ruby was the one going out and doing everything, um, which I didn't feel that it gave justice to Belinda as a character. And this was her season to be showcased in. So I have a lot of ill feelings on that, because I liked Belinda and I like Ruby, but Ruby had her moment. Um, so I didn't need to see Ruby. I needed to see more of Belinda in such a short season. As far as where I see the series going from here, at this point, I don't even know. I don't know. We had the whole everything. The last couple seasons was wrapping up the Pantheon, and then all of a sudden we were focusing on Poppy, um, and bringing the Time Lords back, and so none of that was really in play. I don't know if we're still going to continue with the Pantheon, or if we're going to be bringing Gallifrey back, or if we're going to be focusing on the Timeless Child or something else. I don't know. I don't know where the show is going, and maybe at this point, maybe it's best, because then we can just be surprised and not have expectations that we're setting ourselves up for with disappointment. Like, because sometimes it's our own fault. We have these big grand ideas and they don't come to fruition, and we just deflate ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. I do think that this is one of the stronger seasons of Doctor Who overall. Yeah, the finale kind of fell flat, but I think that is more an effect of only having 8 episodes in a season rather than more than any other factor. I think that's the biggest factor, is that there's just not enough time for the writers to set everything up that they want to set up, that makes to make the payoff of a finale like this pay off well enough as it could. Because a lot of the stuff that was in this finale had the potential to be really, really good and really fascinating. There was just not enough time for any of it to really breathe. Because some of like my favorite episodes were in this have been in this season. I loved Lux. I loved The Well. Like so many great episodes. The story in the engine was such a cool and unique episode by a new writer to Doctor Who that I really loved, and I really hope that we continue to get new and exciting voices writing for this show. Um, that said, Russell has said, like I said before, apparently he has, already done a lot of work on season 3 and he's got ideas for future seasons. I'm just, I think it just depends on how much of that was conceived with Ncuti as continuing to be the Doctor, because his departure is going to impact those stories, I'm sure. Um, Again, like I said, I wonder if originally Going and Finding Poppy was going to be the next season's overarching theme, or story, or whatever. Um, and there's still things that are open, because obviously we don't know who the boss is. We don't know where Susan is. The Master's Tooth is still out there somewhere with
Yeah.
some lady with red nail polish who may or may not have been the Ronnie. Um, and I'm sure they can continue to do stories with the Pantheon, because there's all sorts of weird things that they could get into. Um, Again, I'm really just Russell. Just even if it's like a line in a episode, he needs to start giving explanations as to what 14's up to, when like the Doctor that we are following in the show now is dealing with mortal peril on Earth in the 21st century.
I
Because it's
still
starting
want a
to
YouTube short of him just kicking it on the beach and like these bone beasts walking overhead. And it's like, damn,
like,
sucks to be you. I'm glad I don't have to deal with that. Sips his mimosa.
I know, like I saw somebody post something that it's like, oh, so clearly Donna was outside of the 10-mile radius of that microchip thing, and so she's probably like on vacation while the world ends again. Good for her. But it's just like you gotta put something in. You can't have that big of an idea walking around and not like expect people to be like, hello,
Yeah.
Um, there's. I'm glad that he left some stuff unanswered, because you don't want to wrap stuff up too much. Um, and like I keep saying, I will be shocked if Disney decides not to continue with the show, because it is, it's a long running science fiction show that has a built in audience that really, really loves it. Are there a lot of people who are probably not thrilled with the direction the show's going in right now? Yes, unfortunately. But I feel like a lot of people are still going to watch the next episode just to see what happens.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm hoping Disney continues that. I posted this online, and I'll say it on here too to hold myself accountable. If Disney does renew their deal and that news breaks before I go to Disney World this Thursday, I will make a video to Doug a Doo around Disney World. And if they do it between when I get back from Walt Disney World and when I go to Disneyland in July, I will make the video at Disneyland. um, you know, and because I just think it's a good home for Doctor Who. I really do. I mean, at minimum, it's nice to have it on a platform where it can come out at the same time as it does in the UK, and there's no ad breaks. There's no
Yeah.
ad breaks because it's not written for it like American TV is, and I hated watching on BBC America and having to watch them awkwardly shove ad breaks in.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of awkward, this was going back into the episode storyline wise. So the star certificate was just the Doctor throwing it into space
Yeah,
and being a bootstrap paradox. Like, so there, I yeah, it seemed like there was more mystery around Belinda and her involvement with the Doctor, and how she had some descendant on that one planet in Boom. And I don't know, like I said, I have a lot of notes. We're not gonna get to them all,
yeah.
but like, I don't know. I Belinda's story just
Like I
it
hope that
felt
there's
like it
more
was
to her.
leading to
Yeah,
something not that wasn't this.
yeah. And I hope that maybe we'll see more of her, but I don't know, how Shooty leaving the show and how, whatever Verada Sathu's schedule might be for when they're deciding on filming, whenever that starts happening again, will be. But I would love to see her again, because she's really great and I love her. And it
Yeah.
was, I kind of missed seeing her, because I'm assuming that she wasn't in Andor this season very much because she was filming Doctor Who. I don't know. I would
One
love to see more of her. And for the whole like how did she know the word TARDIS thing, my guess at this point is just that there was a line that got wound up getting cut from the episode that they just forgot that they cut, and it just didn't mean anything.
Well, when her and the Doctor were talking and folding the jacket, and just like we can go here, like it was. I was actually enjoying that. Like they it seemed like they
Yeah.
were talking on a very mutual level.
Hmm.
That they weren't like doctor and companion anymore. They were like in unison. It felt like they were equals, and I was really enjoying that. I started feeling like maybe Belinda was more than what she was, and then she didn't. Um, One thing I really do want to mention that I want to get recorded somewhere because I don't know if it's relevant or not. When the doctor did everything, I should have mentioned this earlier, and put all the regeneration energy into the TARDIS, and it kind of broke reality. I have to go back and watch the episode, but I feel like that was the same effect they had in Lux when he broke out of his fake reality when the glass shattered.
Oh yeah, it's similar. Yeah, I think.
So again, I don't know if there's going to be repercussions in regards to him shifting reality. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
I do think, unfortunately, there's also not going to be a Doctor Who panel at San Diego Comic Con this year, which is too bad. Not that I was planning on going or anything, but it was nice to have them back at San Diego Comic Con last year.
Yeah,
Just for nothing else than the sake of getting news. I am selfishly hoping that this might mean that they will come back to New York Comic Con. They were doing New York Comic Con pretty regularly for a few years, especially with Peter Capaldi. So I'm hoping that they bring that back to New York Comic Con because I do go to that one.
yeah.
Selfishly hoping that for Marvel as well, because apparently Marvel's not skipping San Diego Comic Con this year too, and I'm like, New York here, please. I would love to go to a big Marvel panel. Are you kidding me? So we'll see. Um, yeah, unless they decide to do a panel for specifically the war between the land and the sea, because it sounds like it might be coming sooner than we all thought. Like I just assumed it was going to come out next year to fill in the gap year between seasons of Doctor Who, but I don't know.
I don't know. Um, but looking at the time, we probably really stop holding these people hostage. I'm hoping
We
you all
probably
are
should.
staying willingly. Again, I
Yeah,
apologize. This is almost a 2 hour episode that we
Monica
recorded.
might need to break us up into two parts or something.
It might need to be. That intermission was perfect.
It was.
Do you have any last comments?
No, I mean, again, my thought is mostly we'll probably see a Christmas special filming commencing announcement in the next couple days. Hopefully, I don't know. Um, and just I'm hoping that we get good news on the continuation of not just the show, but also the continuation of their partnership with Disney in the near future. Again, please Disney, can somewhere in that agreement we put you getting to make some merch because we need more Doctor Who merch.
My only
um,
question in regards to that is if it doesn't go Disney, what season number is it going to be?
it's like
we
they went all in. This is season one. I'm like, oh, please continue. Again, I don't see why they wouldn't. It's a big show that has a built-in fan base that they really don't like. I wish they would advertise the show more, but they don't really need to because Doctor Who fans will find it. But at the
yeah,
same time, like you need to bring in some new fans, but also like what a weird like as much as like they were like, oh, this is a fresh start. Russell's brought in like increasingly niche things into the show, which for the most part he has explained them very well within the show, and you don't really like necessarily need to go on a deep dive to find out stuff about it in order to enjoy the episode. In order to like get more out of the episode you might need to know more, but for the most part I think he's explained stuff really well. But yeah, overall really enjoyed this season. The finale had some pitfalls, but it was great. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to what's next as much as I have qualms and issues with what direction they've decided to go in. I am intrigued to see what they do with it.
yeah. I'm very sad to see shooting Gatwa leaving the
Yeah.
TARDIS. I really did enjoy his time. He was he was such a joy. I'm gonna use his words. He was such a joy to see on screen and be our doctor, even though it was short lived. But things come to an end, things change, and we keep moving forward and growing.
Yeah.
Anyway, everyone, thank you all for taking this ride with us through Doctor Who season 2 on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Thank you all for being here. Why am I getting emotional? Like I'm like I'm regenerating. It just felt like a moment. Damn.
Yeah. It's
Ah,
sad. It's
it's
because it's
sad.
so unexpected too. We didn't
It's
know it
sad.
was
Yeah.
coming. Usually you can prepare for a generation where you go into the episode knowing, okay, the doctor's not making it through this. We didn't know that ahead of time, and so it's just,
Yeah.
ugh,
Well,
heartbreaking.
not just that. I enjoy having Doctor Who around. I
Yeah,
enjoy having conversations with you and friends and other people about the show. I enjoy hearing people's opinions on things, and we come to a close on another season, and it's always sad.
yes. Especially when, again, eh, as much as I would highly doubt that the show's going anywhere, it is not fun to have this level of uncertainty around it. As much as I am fairly confident that it will continue, it's not fun to not know when the next episode's coming or even have a general idea of it. Because usually
Yeah,
we would know, oh, there's a Christmas special coming. We don't know that for sure this year, and that's not fun. But we'll see.
we'll see. But
Yeah,
again, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for surviving this 2 hour podcast
yeah.
on this finale episode. Um, but for the time being, until Doctor Who returns, that's all
Until
for
we
this
come up with some
episode.
other ideas
Yeah.
to talk
Or
about.
we'll come back with other things, but
Yeah,
like as far as new content, like that's all for this episode of Temple of Geeks Who Review. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to subscribe.
leave us a review.
Yes, leave us a review. You can follow us on social media for more Doctor Who content on Blue Sky and TikTok as Temple of Geek. You can join our Discord. The links are in those bios. You can also visit us at templeofgeek.com for Doctor Who cosplay guides, episodes, geeky news, video game news, and more. You all, everyone, you were a joy.
Yes.
Thank you all. Thank you for listening.